everybody, it's Jeremy from Hard to Master, and thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tindaya, which was designed by Lolo Gonzalez. It's produced by Red Mojo Games. And Tindaya is one of those games where you could play competitive or you can play cooperative. So I'm going to give you a very generalized overview of what you're doing in the game. There is a very good rules video that's going to go over the competitive mode. I will show you what's going to be different in the competitive versus the cooperative. Sorry, the alliance cooperative mode is what the rules video has. But I will go over what's kind of different in the two modes and which one might be for this person and which one might be for this person, and could both people enjoy it. So in Tindaya, you are essentially trying to survive. A lot of people say this is a successor to Spirit Island, which I've played one or two times. I can't really talk about that. Check on BGG if you want to find out more about that maybe. But what you're doing in Tindaya is you're trying to survive. This is a game where it is a difficult cooperative game. So I will start by saying, if you want a more difficult cooperative game, you find maybe Pandemic or any miniatures based game like Zombicide or something that's too easy for you, I can tell you this one can really ramp up the difficulty for you. Because what you're going to be doing is you're going to have 3 different eras where you're going through and trying to survive by doing many different things. And the era is set up so that you're going to have a strategy phase, then you're going to have an action phase, and then you're going to end with the end of era phase, which you're going through to check a bunch of different things, feeding your people, making sure that you can survive. So in the strategy phase, we're going to start with the cooperative mode. Cooperative mode, you're all working together to try to appease the gods and help the regions on the map to not be destroyed as much, so that your nobles can survive and your villagers can survive, so that you can essentially finish and survive the annihilation of what's happening. And in that strategy phase, you're going to see some different cards. It's going to tell you the order of what's going to be kind of taking place. You're going to, at the beginning of the game, you're going to have a couple different cards here, which will show you what each god is going to do to the map if you do not fulfill their needs by doing these offerings. And I do have a much smaller map here. It's not all really going to fit on screen if I've got everything. So I've kind of taken 4 instead of, I believe, the 8 or 9 different map tiles that you're going to have. And you'll notice some of these have a red volcano, and they are more difficult. And in the rule book, it will tell you that you need to put, an even amount. So if I have maybe 8 tiles, 2 of them are red, the other 6 are the black volcanoes, which are going to help make the game kind of a little bit easier. Oops, knocked that over. But in the strategy phase, I am going to know what's going to happen if I don't appease him. And right here on this card, it says, if I do not give the volcanic god goat milk, pigs in the first era, I need 1 per player, which we have to work together to do that. We are going to have this bad thing happen. And this one, for instance, says that for every settlement on that island or in that region, because the more difficult it gets for you is based on how well you're making them happy. Less happy, much greater area of effect. Whereas if it is going to be a happier god, they're not going to affect as much. Maybe 1 ring versus 2 or 3 out. But whichever islands are within that ring, they're going to take the hay settlements, and they're going to knock off your nobles and your villagers from those settlements, unless you can provide manure, which is a resource you would have on your board that you gain from production. As far as the female goddess here, she is going to attack the different bays or coves and remove these different raw material clay tokens that are still on those spaces. So remove all of them that are in that region. Now you can protect it by gaining a wall, and one way to get a wall is there are these different cards that are going to be in front of you on the on the table. And like this one here, I have a wall. To do that, I'm going to have these 3 resources, and I'm going to spin them to gain this card, which will gain me that wall, and I can place it on the board. Now that would help with that goddess, but you still want to try and give her these things like fig plants, or she needs salt. Now in the later eras, you're going to have to provide one of each resource, and you'll get a new set of cards that are going to come out, these offering cards right here. These will flip out for each new era, which gives you new resources that you're going to have to provide if you want to appease them. Now, in addition to that, you can, if you have given offerings here, either manure, wood, or the hay, you can flip over this prophecy card, which will tell you where these events are going to take place on the map, because depending on which era tells you which volcano or chasm that they're going to be. Now, you'll notice there are these ships as well. These are the conquistadors, and they're going to be rolling one of these D8s, and that will tell you which chasm that they're going to be on the board, which tells you where they're going to invade and try and take out your people. Now, the different resources are going to be things like food, but most of it is perishable. So as you go through, some different things you're going to do on your turn are you have these cubes and you have these cylinders. And the cubes will give you one action, and they're going to come back at the end of the round during the action phase. So we talked about this. That's a strategy. Now we're doing actions in a turn order. You'll have one of these turn order tokens, and when you're finished with all your actions and you choose to not do any more, you just flip it over, reminding you that you're going to pass that to the left and have a new first person. So the cubes will let you do one action, whereas the cylinders let you do a double of that action. Now, the one difference is you're going to get rid of this after you spend it. It will not come back. And you're going to gain more actions as you go, because these actions are going to allow you to move around the board. And when you move your noble into a settlement that you do not know how to produce, you don't know anything about it, which is where your cubes are, that's going to allow you to learn that trade type. So whenever you do that, you would move your nobles there at the end of the round. They're going to learn that trade, which would allow you to pull this cube and put it in your supply for later. Now on, you can produce that type of good and even learn new technologies, because the technologies are where you're going to get the cylinders and give you those bonus actions. Now, on your turn, you're allowed to do 1 or 2 consecutive actions with your tokens. Then it would go to the next person and so on until you don't want to do anymore. So you don't have to spin yours. There's no reason not to spin the cubes, just a heads up. But the cylinders, you may want to save them so you can have better actions when you need them. If you don't need to take the actions, there's no real reason for you to use them. And again, we are talking about the cooperative mode right now, so it might be better for your group if you save 1 or 2 of those until you really can benefit greatly from it. Now, competitive, you may spend it just to kind of spoil somebody else's plans a little bit. But that's what you're going to do. So I can spin this token here to move. Now, when I move, I'm going to have different things. At the end of my move, I can pick up one of these raw tiles and create a new settlement if it's a noble. Nobles are a little bit more powerful. They're the ones that can help fight conquistadors. They're the one that can make trades and can pick up tokens and things, whereas your villagers are kind of there to help you produce. And they produce at the different settlements in different ways. So some may produce based on how many coves you control. Some might be based on how many pigs you have, because you got to slaughter that pig so that you can get that meat. Others, milking the goats, or based on your villagers. So it depends on what trade type you're doing so that you can produce that much. And what I would do to produce is I would take one of these cubes, and based on the ones that I know, the types that I know, I can put it on the hand. Now, putting it on the hand symbol here will let me produce it, and I would do it once. But if I put a cylinder there, I would produce that type twice. And if I've upgraded to do the salt, well, I can do that as well. Now the bottom row, let's talk about upgrading. So I can either move around and do things on the board, I can produce the ones that I already know, or I could go and I could learn and I could upgrade the different technologies on my board. So I have these cylinders. This first one here is already unlocked because I've learned, or I started the game knowing how to make salt. I could then spend a log and a stone, which those are usually going to come from these raw material tokens, and you are limited on how many you can get. Some are going to give you just a set number, others are going to give you an amount based on the area you're at, plus a certain number, maybe a 1 or a 2. And I'm going to get these different raw resources. I can spend them to make a canoe, which would help me move across the water. I can get them to create fire. I could get them to upgrade different things on my board. Now, if I place a cube, I can only do it once. So if I've already unlocked salt from the beginning, I could spin the wood, I could spin the stone, and I could upgrade this. But let's say I haven't done any, but I do know this hay or farmland tile type of trade good. I could use a double marker, and if I had 3 stone and a log, well, I could double upgrade these tokens. Now I have 2 more cylinders, which will give me more actions. And in addition to that, later I can produce non-perishable goods, because the bottom row are non-perishable. And those are going to be great because they help you feed more people much easier. Now, you are limited to 3 of that type before you start becoming perishable. The other ones are going to perish, and it's not really good to have perishable goods, because if you're not using them to feed people and they're just overstocked, you're going to put them over here. That's bad, because that makes the gods angry that you're wasting this food. Another thing is having people die because they don't have food. That's bad as well. Now, we keep saying the people being removed is bad. Now, that's not all true, because you can, if you don't have these resources and you move with your people, you could take them to a volcano and sacrifice them in place of one of the goods that you need. So there is a lot going on. Now it sounds like there's a lot going on. I'm not even doing a full rules teach, but I'm just going over, these are your actions, this is the strategy, giving you a pretty good overview. Like I said, this is a condensed board that's not fully developed, but you can see different things on the board which are going to take effect. Now, after you've done all your actions, you've moved around, you've taken out conquistadors, and you can put them in jail, and you can sacrifice them as well if you wanted. As you're doing that, at the end of all your actions, when you decide to pass and you flip that token over, you're going to be doing the end of era phase, where you are going through all these steps, and there are these handy little player aids which can go over both not only the cooperative but the competitive differences in how you score. So cooperative is the alliance mode, and then the dominion mode is going to be your competitive mode. And so I would go through all these steps. They're also here on this board, which would tell you, I'm going to reproduce. So if you have 2 villagers at a spot, they're going to reproduce just like goats and pigs would. Then you'll go and you'll make sure you feed your people. You'll make sure you survive. If you have too many people on the board, you do have to create a cave. So you'll have a cylinder here, and when you pay the resources of a log, clay, and stone, I can upgrade and have a cave. Now I have more room for the people that are out on the board. So you're going to go through all these end of era steps, seeing if you survive, if they act, and we have like the tsunami, and the tsunami ends up taking out the region of the board or the gods. Those different things happen. Tiles are going to be removed. Volcanoes are going to turn into these other tiles, which they're in the box, I guess. But they're volcanic tiles, so they look very similar to the mountain tiles. At times it's hard to differentiate because they're very similar. But these volcano tiles are going to go out on the board. They're going to produce new good types, which are going to give you your obsidian and more obsidian and stone. And they're going to be out on the board, but they're not great places to do much. They just kind of take away the board from you, which could also have your nobles and stuff removed, because if you're wiped out of villagers, you lost. If you run out of nobles, you lost. Things like that. So you've got to be very apparent of what you're doing in the game and making sure that you're working with each other if you're playing the cooperative mode. You don't have a score track on the cooperative mode. There will be an objective that your group has to meet. In addition to that, you cannot have any a max amount over this amount. Now, I accidentally flipped this backwards. But there's a max amount of conquistadors that you can have on the board. And if you are over that limit, you would lose as well. Trying to survive those 3 eras, making sure that you meet that additional those 2 additional requirements. Some other cards you're going to have is each player will have a certain tribe ability, and they're going to be different. So like this one here is when you make an offering, you can do an additional offering. You don't even have to be at a you don't even have to use a worker to do that. You just can do it. These cards are those cards that are going to tell you what's to come. We do have these idle cards. These idle cards will be taken if you're the first one to make an offering to a god. You would get one of these. In addition, you can get some from these public market cards, I guess. But they're going to give you different things. Like this one is a competitive card. Anything with that sun symbol is going to be the Dominion mode, but this means you get +1 point. So there are a bunch of different things. There's one for a wall, and it tells you here in the bottom corner when you can use that card. So your idle cards are going to be over here. You are going to have different difficulties. The 1 arrow is easy. You'll notice it only has 4 spaces. Well, 2 has 6 spaces. And then if we get to the 3, they've got 6 spaces, but they can be quite a bit more dangerous. And that's just era 1. If we get over here to the era 3s, you'll see there's 7 spots. And conquistadors will come out. So that's these cards. Let's talk about the different competitive cards. So what's different in competitive is you're still doing your board. You're still setting up, pretty much similar or the same as a normal cooperative game here. And then this is going to be the same. Your differences come over here with this board, and you're going to have some different cards. So you're going to deal out these secret objective cards. And these are probably my favorite thing about the competitive mode, because it is a semi-cooperative competitive mode, because you can help to survive by having the offerings that you're giving so that the board doesn't get wiped out. But you're going to have these secret objective cards, and what you're going to do is you're going to pick one, and you're going to put one of these tokens on it, and it could be -2, it could be +1, it could be -1, or it could be a +2. And basically, at the end of the game, whoever has met the hidden condition that you know about and that you can strategize with is either going to gain or lose points based on that. So if you want to, like I did, put a -2 on there so you know where not to be or what not to do, then you would, like I had this one here, and it had to do with being on a bay. Whoever had the most people on a bay is going to, or a cove, is going to lose 2 points because I put the -2 on it. And only I know what this is. Everybody else at the table has one. And then at the next round, you would get another one, because anytime this symbol comes up on the cards, you're going to gain one, and you can put your scoring tokens on it. Now, that's one way you're going to get points. You'll get other points here and there from different things as you play. But another thing is, like, we have that goal that you have to meet at the end of the game for cooperative. You have 2 here for the competitive mode as well. So this one we had is who has the most people on volcanoes at the end of the game. They're going to get 2 points. In addition to that, you're going to have this card over here. And this one, and there's multiple cards that you're going to get to put over there. There's about, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 of each type. And you're going to pick one for one side, one on the other. So this one is whoever has the most people on, or most settlement types. So if I have all 4 settlement types that are not equal, and everybody else has 3 or 2 that they have people on, then I'm going to get those 2 points at the end. So this, for us, was not a super high-scoring game in the games that we played because I can tell you this, my friends wanted to tank the game. They didn't care about saving. It was how fast or how many points can they get in a short amount of time to try and win. Now, I will tell you the strategy for that is you're going to have to survive yourself because everybody can lose, and it's a little confusing when you're reading the rule book at first, but everybody can lose if the board wipes people out. Like if it comes to total annihilation because you're not taking care of things on the board, everybody's going to lose. You've got to check the archipelago, and if it's still, standing, then you can still score and win the game. But the people that get knocked off the board, they're not going to. So if you lost, your nobles, you're out of the scoring. The game is over. You trigger the end game, but only the people that survived, and you're said to survive if you've not had that happen, you will score your points. So you'll look at those different things. You'll look at the secret objective cards. You'll look at these public objective cards, and you'll score those, and you could win with maybe 7 points, 5 points, 10 points. You could get up to 18, I guess, but I have not seen it get that high. In the games we played, my friends, if it wasn't cooperative, they weren't trying to make it last super long. They were just trying to put themselves in a position so that they could get points. And everybody else, so well, if you die, and it kind of burned up in their face because they didn't end up surviving in one game. And, we did. So that's a very big overview of what you're doing in Tindaya. Like I said, there's a lot of different cards, but usually they tell you if they're cooperative or competitive because cooperative is not going to have that sun symbol. The Dominion mode will have that sun symbol. And the majority of the game is the same. You just have little things here and there that are going to be different based on which mode you're playing. So let me talk about what I like about the game, what didn't maybe work so well, where the strategies are in each mode. I will say that my group really prefers the cooperative mode of the game. We do play a lot of co-op games though. We do play a lot of competitive games as well, but we're a group that really does like cooperative games. So we're not one that dislikes cooperative games. So if we have a chance to play a cooperative game, we're going to play it, and we're going to really enjoy it and try to find out new strategies. And we're okay with the high difficulty. I will tell you, this is like I said at the beginning, this is a difficult cooperative game. When we played on the easy mode, it was difficult enough, but we did win, and it wasn't like the hardest. But we could see how it was going to ramp up based on changing the game. So the next time, what do? We put more red volcanoes, and we went ahead and hopped up to level 3. We wanted to really test the boundaries and see. And I will tell you, that hard mode of doing those different hard things and setting it up is very difficult. We did not survive past Era 2. I think we ended either during the end of Era phase, towards the beginning of that, I believe. But we did not make it past Era 2 with the very hard mode. And I don't know if we saw a way that we were going to make it or could make it based on how the board sets up. Now, it will feel different how you play because the board's going to set up a different way, and there's quite a bit of variability, especially I think in competitive mode. But in the way that the cards come out, like I said, you roll these conquistadors, so where they end up as well, and you could have two things in one spot. So things can get really nasty really fast. So if you like harder cooperative games or you're tired of easy ones, this may be something you check out and try it out because it will be difficult. Now, it is very procedural as far as like you got your strategy phase, your action phase. The action phase is probably the least procedural aspect of it. But then you have this end of era phase where you can see there are 10 different things that you're checking before going to the next round. Same as the strategy phase. You're flipping over these new cards, checking things. So there's a lot of like, I've got to go through this and check this, and there's some rules that are it takes a lot of time to get used to, especially in that first game, as far as how you're doing things, how things relate. You're going to be looking up these God power cards and how they're going to affect you, probably every one of them, because some of the iconography is apparent. Some of it's you're going to have to go through, and it's going to take you a minute to get used to it. So as far as the cooperative mode, like I said, I like that. I like that you're working with people to learn the new technologies. I feel like the actions themselves are actually not super difficult to understand. I'm going to either use a cube, I'm going to use a cylinder, I'm going to do one action or two, and I'm going to place them on one of these 2 spots in each settlement, or I'm going to place it up here and create a cave, or to do the different walking around and setting up yourself on the board. So those actions are not super difficult. It's more of the actions are more difficult when you're like fighting conquistadors and you're upgrading things, because to upgrade and produce these more echelon non-perishable goods, you're gonna have to spend extra resources like hay or straw, salt, wood, to be able to create them. Even like moving across the board with the canoe was a little difficult for me to see, because it was from this way to this way, and my other friends could see it real easily. They were like, you can't go that way. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm going straight through. And they're like, that's not the way that the canoe can move. So they would have to correct that and move me, remove me to a spot where I could go to, and then I could usually get to where I wanted to go anyways, but I just was in the wrong hex, I guess, to finish. So now, competitive mode, my friends, like I said, they were wanting to take the game. They really, after playing them multiple times, it's not a style that a game with the style of semi-co-op that they would want to do anymore. But that's not to say that it's not something you can enjoy. After playing it a couple times, I can see how the strategy comes into play. I can see how you want to try to keep yourself in a good spot and helping yourself and trying to, like I said, with these secret objectives, make sure that you're lined up. But you may or may not want to be offering. I mean, you may offer to get the idol card. You may offer to get this and that. But really, you're trying to hold out and put yourself in a position so that you don't get knocked out of the game while hoping your friends do. So it is semi-cooperative. Like I was talking to my friends, it has a take that feel to it, but there's not a lot of take that to it. The only take that kind of thing are these secret objective cards, and if you put the negative bonus on them. And like I said, that's a hidden take that kind of thing, but it's not really in your face take that in the game, unless you were going to take a raw materials tile, or you know, they came in to learn a new settlement type and you leave. Like, things like that would be take that. But I don't feel like it was very take that. I just feel like it has this take that sense to the Dominion mode. Like I said, this is my favorite thing in it, the secret objectives. I think that's really cool. It can be a little lucky how you like run into things, but you're really strategizing off your cards, knowing where you might want to penalize other people and stay away from that. As well as you're trying to complete these objectives and have the most so you can gain an additional 4 points. And like I said, in our games, they were not high point totals, so you're going to want to get every point you can. If you see a way to get points, you need to get those points. And there are some of those points, like we said, in these idle cards. So you may get lucky and pull a point, and that could help you win the game. So a little bit of luck involved with the cards. Not a whole lot of, like, the dice are going to give you a little bit of luck as far as that happens. But if you're giving the offerings to see what's to come, you're going to know what's going to be affected by these gods, and you're going to be able to plan for that in that strategy phase, whether it's cooperative or if you're just trying to help yourself to survive and, you know, they're not paying attention and they get wiped off the board. So those are kind of the positives. Like I said, a couple negatives are the rule book has everything in it. And like, I really like how they have all the cards explain. Every single card in the game is explained. Even your tribe cards, the alliance. I like that they lined out all the purple for alliance mode. They lined out for the Dominion mode in orange. You do have some variants in the box, like the Trader you can throw in, which we have not played, but the Trader, there's a solo mode for this game, and all that's kind of separate. So I like the layout as far as how they've set up the rulebook and where you can see and find things really quickly depending on the mode. I will say that and though there are pictures, for me it was hard to read and go through some of the rules. It just wasn't easy to find because it's just words, and it kind of gets mixed in. And even like with the setup felt very difficult for me going through this. Every time I just pulled up the how to play video, and I let him go over the steps, and I'd set it up, pause, set it up, pause. I felt like that was much quicker for me. So if you're okay with, setting it up that way, or maybe this rulebook style doesn't bother you, I don't think you'll have an issue with that if that doesn't bother you. But for me, that's a slight negative that I had, was it was hard for me to go through that rulebook and set up. It was much easier for me to watch that rules, how to play video, watch that during setup, so I learned how to play. And then I can go back and change the minimal differences with the Dominion mode because it's highlighted in orange. So there's positives to the rulebook and there's negatives to the rulebook. There's a lot of variability in that Dominion mode. Like I said, even though it's a mode that my friends and I are probably not going to play very much, if ever again, because if they don't want to play it, I'm not going to play it solo. This is not a game that I want to play solo. But there is a lot of variability in these secret objectives. There's several of these cards that give you, like I said, there's 2 different types. These are the alliance mode, but then there's 2 different types here that are going to give you different objectives that you can score that are public for everybody to see. There's different ones of these that are going to change the way the board gets laid out and set up. So I feel like this game has a lot of variability, and I would play cooperative more, but I do see the benefits and the strategy in the Dominion mode. It's just not one that my friends really want to play because semi-co-op's hard enough to get to the table as it is. So those are my positives and negatives of Tindaya. I think it's a difficult cooperative game that I think that if that's the kind of experience you're looking for, you can do it. I think that it's very interesting how you're going through this side of the board, and then, like I said, trying not to overfeed your people, and the actions are pretty streamlined and easy, not super difficult to get through. The most difficult part, like I said, is to manage this part. Managing this part and going through your order of operations here for your end of era is the most difficult part of the game. The action part is the easiest part of the game. So if you're okay with proceduralness and checking and strategizing, then it's not going to be a problem for you. But if you're someone that doesn't like that and it's going to be difficult, it may be a stretch for you to really enjoy this one. So I liked it. I like my experience with it, but it's not one that I would break out all the time. It would be a game that I would break out and play. I would probably play with a group that already knew how to play. If I had new people coming to the table, I don't know if I would, teach a bunch of new people every time. This is a game that I would teach a group. I'd play it with that group only because there's just so much that you've got to understand to really play. And if they don't know that, there is going to be a lot of quarterbacking and you're going to be helping them take their moves. I will say I would not recommend playing the Dominion mode without playing the cooperative mode first with people so they know how to play the game. And if I were you and this sounds like something you would want to teach, great. If not, I would look up a great rules video on YouTube and let him teach you how to play the game, because it will make your life a little bit easier. So Tindaya, components, I can tell you components are pretty good. Cards are a little slightly thin, but I mean the standees are good. You've got your noble and your villager meeples that are custom made. The tiles are about 2 millimeter, pretty thick. You have goat meeples, you have pigs, you have a bunch of cards. The boards are 2 millimeter. And then if you really like it, you can go to the deluxe version, and they have miniatures instead of the standees, and they're going to have dual recessed boards. The card quality may be even better. The screen printed meeples. So there is more you can get if you want to find a deluxe version, and it will make the production quality even better. But I mean, I don't really have any other complaints for the production except for maybe a little bit of the layout of the rule book as far as the pictures to words and descriptions there. I do like the layout of the different modes. So and then the card quality being just a hair thinner than I usually like, but you sleeve it and that takes away a lot of that issue. So Tindaya by Red Mojo Games, Lolo Gonzalez is the designer. If you're looking for a hard cooperative game, check it out. If you're looking for a semi-cooperative game in a competitive mode where you have a take that feel without a lot of take that, maybe a bonus for your modes. It has a solo mode in it. So there's quite a bit in this box. It's just, if all that sounds good to you, definitely go out and buy a copy. If not, then it may not be for you. Like I said, this is not a game I believe that's going to be for everybody, because there's a lot of that stuff I just told you. But I think there is a good group that would really enjoy this, and really does enjoy this. I see it on Instagram here and there, or Facebook as well, people playing it. So there are people that's for. You just have to make sure that's the right person for you, and know that you're getting a difficult cooperative game, or you're getting a semi-cooperative competitive game where you're trying to outwit people and make sure that you survive while trying to let the rest of the world fail. So we thank you for watching this video. Please feel free to like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. Just changed our name, or my Instagram handle, to Hard to Master Games. So at Hard to Master Games on Instagram. I'm going to start doing some new stuff called Real Talk, where I'm going to be talking to different people in the hobby, whether they are a designer, maybe they work for a board game in the industry, maybe they're a content creator, maybe they're just someone that plays games. But I'm going to be getting one-on-one with them, and we're going to talk about different things. So the questions are not always going to be identical. I'm going to try and throw different questions depending on who I'm talking to. And just have a good time for a little bit amount of time. So I hope you tune in for that at Hard to Master Games on Instagram. And like I said, please feel free to comment if you've played this game, if you think it looks really cool. If you have questions, I try to get back on there and answer those the best I can. Check out Red Mojo on Instagram, and who knows what they're going to put out next. But I do look forward to see what they do next, because there's some really cool things in here, and it just you have to decide if it's for you or not. So till next time, I'm Jeremy with Hard to Master. Love to hate, and we'll see you.